and welcome to Kit Guru. Today we are looking at the Corsair Sabre RGB Pro wireless mouse. Andy did a review for the redesigned wired Sabre mouse earlier this year, and now there's a wireless version. You can also check out that full review here on Kit Guru if you wish. However, the new Sabre RGB Pro wireless comes in with an RRP of $89.99. Will this Sabre have some bite, or will it just be one big fluff ball? Well, let's find out. But before we do, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below. First off, we have the usual Corsair box in here, very basic packaging with not a lot inside. We have the usual paraphernalia, and also we have the mouse itself, dongle and the cable. The cable is rubber though, peeps. Now, there is an ongoing debate amongst the internet to say whether rubber or braid is better, and it's not a huge issue because mostly you will be using this wirelessly, but I would personally rather to see a braid here for $89.99. The included detachable cable we have here ends in a USB-C, and the other end is your usual USB-A. And the rubber itself is luckily not sticky at all, but if it does get kinked, as with all rubber cables I have come across in my time at least anyway, it never really goes back flat again. You kind of end up with a wavy, shallow indent along the whole thing instead. I didn't find that the cable caught on my desk per se, but you can feel that it also does have a little more drag. Not really a big issue as this is wireless, but something to consider if you plan to use it in wired mode. The dongle that comes separately and does actually fit into the underneath of the mouse in a flush compartment that you can get into by putting your nail not in the gap but behind the entire door. This pops out and reveals the nook for the dongle. This is great for travel as it would be really easy to lose otherwise. Whilst we are here, we might as well talk about the rest of the underneath of the mouse itself. We have the Corsair Marksman 26K DPI PAW3393 optical sensor with 2000 Hz hyperpolling. Also, the DPI on this can be changed one at a time. Just thought that I would mention that for you. And below we have the profile switch button too, which you can allocate 3 onboard profiles to in the software, but more on that later. Then underneath we have the wired slipstream wireless 2.4 GHz or Bluetooth mode switch. And finally we can see the 400% PTFE glide pads. I personally don't feel that these glide pads are smooth. The back pads are scratchy on the backwards drag and really in all directions slightly, especially when compared to my Basilisk. You can really feel the drag, it's quite significant. Even though this mouse is only 79 grams, the drag makes it feel much heavier in use. There also isn't any spares in the box either. More on usability later, but that's a thumbs down from me. Moving the mouse around, we can see the whole aesthetic is reminiscent of its wide predecessor, very chilled, non-aggressive, and doesn't really scream gamer. It also has a right hand only ergonomic with the same gloss accents running along the sides and grille on the front. The RGB on the inner side of the mouse above the up and down keys though has been removed. We have the USB-C socket in the front of the mouse, and we have the gloss accent running between the left and right click and around the mouse wheel. The mouse wheel is rubberized with no RGB and has what I call a medium to soft increment. The mouse wheel also clicks in with an average scroll click. Then we have the DPI cycle button, which has 5 levels to cycle through. The click on this button is pretty satisfying to be honest, and you can see the RGB that lights up the designated colour for the current level of DPI associated. This turns off by itself, and talking of RGB, we also have the Corsair logo on the back end of the mouse. The body is made up of stipple black plastic, mainly with the words Subrule scribed along the left hand click. Definitely a design for right-handed users, might I remind you. The shell is made of 5 separate shell pieces, 2 being on each side. There is a slight flare on both sides, but no real pinky or thumb support as such. The sides also taper in towards the top of the mouse for added grip. Then we have the next section, which is the palm rest with a slow and low incline to the medium hump rather than a steep upward incline. And whilst we are talking about the body, I wanted to mention build quality. If you shake the device, you can hear the mouse wheel moving left and right, but other than that, there is no rattle of internal components. no clicking or cracking when pressing down on the top and sides, and no buttons engage when being squeezed. Finally, the last two shell pieces are separate left and right click buttons which have comfort grooves. Also, having the buttons separate from the shell makes the whole button process feel a lot snappier too, rather than having to push the entire shell down, for instance. And I like my mice to be like this, to be honest. Whilst we are on the subject of left and right click, the switches here are Omron DFCFKs that can't be removed. These also have Corsair quick strike buttons. Corsair claimed that quick strike buttons use pre-tensioning of the left and right button click plates with a downward spring-loaded force to close the distance between them and their Omron switches for zero gap. So here you can see there really is no pre-travel and very, very little post-travel. The side buttons also feel very satisfying, not spongy at all, and certainly didn't feel like an afterthought. The side buttons are TTC switches, just for your information. So I thought I would talk to you about the software next, and here firstly we have the main screen where all of your Corsair products can be seen. You can access the quick access list here to take you directly to the section you are looking for. However, for now we are just going to go ahead and click the mouse itself. I just want to draw your attention to the top left. This is where you can customize your onboard profiles. You can customize existing ones or add your own. Next we have key assignment, and here you can see a handy little how-to guide that pops up to show you how to add assignments to each key. For example, in this case we are adding a text assignment. Next we have hardware key assignments, so this is for when the software is unavailable. A similar process to do so here. Next we have lighting, which you can choose from 5 different presets, or below change and customize your own. Hardware lighting is again for when the software is unavailable. Here is where you can change your DPI setting for each on the fly level. You can also add your own custom color, which I think is really useful, as I feel you are more likely to remember colors you have set yourself and what they mean. Next we have surface calibration, and you must have the mouse connected via cable for this. I found in use this made little difference in terms of how the mouse felt, to me anyway, as I'm not overly sensitive to small adjustments this particular feature offers. But to those that wish to get the most out of your mouse and to the best standard, this is recommended for sure. Next we have settings, which you must have your mouse plugged in for to utilize all options here. You can change your polling rate, brightness, sleep facility, and much more. Also worth a mention that up to 5 profiles can be stored onto the mouse's onboard memory. So after looking at the ins and outs of this mouse, I can confirm that when gaming with the Slipstream wireless dongle, there was no jitter or lag, and the slightly scratchy pads underneath didn't seem to hinder me much, but it was a noticeable drag. But for someone who doesn't use a massively low DPI, it wasn't all that bad. However, if you use a really low DPI, this would be a big problem for sure. I found the ergonomics of the mouse really comfortable even after a few hours of gaming. It also is not in any shape, way or form a grease magnet, which is great news, and I would even go as far to say as it almost repels grease. As you regular gurus would know, I use palm and fingertip grips mostly, and this mouse was great for that. If you use claw grip though, there is plenty of support and room here, but you really can feel that drag. I thought I would also let you all know I did a lift-off distance test, and the Sabre was incredibly low on lift-off distance. It doesn't even read at 1 disc height, and there is no setting to adjust this in the software or on the hardware. Moving on, battery claims are up to 90 hours, but I got around 60 hours out of the Sabre. That isn't bad because I left this thing on consistently for those 60 hours with RGB at 100% brightness and fast speed RGB effect, and sleep mode turned off. So this isn't how you would normally use this, and if you had sleep on and also differing RGB levels and effects, I have no doubt that you could achieve the 90 hours that was recommended. So before we move on, on, I wanted to just go over a quick comparison to the SteelSeries Aero 3 wireless, and you may be thinking, well, why? Because the Aerox 3 wireless used to be about £100 and now it is a very similar price on Amazon to the new Sabre. You can check out our full review of the SteelSeries Aerox 3 here on KitGuru 2 if you wish. But just as a brief overview, the Aerox 3 has a different shape and has a lot of a lower profile than the Sabre, but it offers very similar features such as wireless 2.4 GHz and Bluetooth and similar specs, but you are going to be shaving off a little bit of weight here as the Sabre comes in at 79 grams, whereas the Aerox 3 wireless comes in at just 66 grams. Not only that, but we don't have that slightly scratchy feel to the underneath of the pads of the Aerox either. However, the one thing that the Sabre has top trumped the Aerox over is pre and post travel. Those Corsair quick strike buttons really do make a difference, and the shape of the Sabre is actually more comfortable too, with a lot less of your palm hanging off at the back of it compared to the Aerox 3 wireless. The Aerox uses SteelSeries mechanical switches compared to the Omrons in our Sabre. Here is a sound test of both for you. But is it enough? Personally, I would vote yes, believe it or not. The comfort level is much higher than that on the SteelSeries, and the fact that those switches make for a quick and snappy actuation is another bonus here. The slightly scratchy pads and the weight don't bother me personally, as I am used to the Basilisk, which is really much heavier than these mice here, and therefore really doesn't make much of a difference to me. However, if you are looking for a quick and even lighter mouse to be used on low DPI for things such as FPS gaming, etc., then there are definitely other options like the Aerox 3 wireless that would be better for you. In conclusion, I believe that the Sabre RGB Pro wireless is a solid device despite its slight downfalls. But are there other mice I would suggest that can offer similar, either for less or the same price? Absolutely. So are you excited about the Sabre RGB Pro wireless, or will you be purchasing something else? Let us know down in the comments, and as you are there, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Check out our merchandise and our website daily. My name's Christina, this is KitGuru, and we will see you next time.